I'd heard about the Aokigahara forest long before I ever saw it. People called it the Sea of Trees, but others knew it by a far darker name, Japan's infamous suicide forest. The stories swirling around it were the kind you couldn't shake. Whispers of ghosts, lost souls, and strange happenings filled online forums, travel blogs, and horror sites. My friends and I used to joke about it like it was some far-off fantasy, but I never thought I'd end up there. But here I was, standing at the edge of the forest, staring into its dense, almost impenetrable thicket. It was unnervingly quiet. The air felt heavy, thick with humidity and something else, something I couldn't quite place. I adjusted my backpack, the straps digging into my shoulders, and glanced at my phone. No service. That wasn't surprising. I'd been warned about that. But the real reason I was here had nothing to do with adventure or curiosity. It had to do with Taro. Taro had always been a bit of an oddball. He was quiet, kept to himself, and had this fascination with dark, eerie things. We'd been friends since high school, but after graduation we drifted apart. He became more reclusive, almost obsessively interested in the morbid, urban legends, cursed places, and especially Aokigahara. He talked about it more and more in the months leading up to his disappearance. The last time I saw him was nearly a year ago. We were sitting at a small cafe, sipping coffee in awkward silence. He mentioned going on a personal journey, something about finding answers in the forest. I laughed it off, thinking he was just being dramatic. But then he stopped answering his phone. Stopped posting online. Vanished. A month later, his parents filed a missing persons report. No one had seen him since that day in the cafe. His family searched everywhere, except for Aokigahara. They didn't want to believe he'd gone there, even though every sign pointed to it. The police found no clues, no trace of him, but I knew better. I knew Taro, and I knew where he'd gone. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as I stepped into the forest. The trees closed in around me almost immediately, casting deep, dark shadows that swallowed the sunlight. The dense canopy overhead blocked out most of the sky, leaving only a faint, greenish glow. The forest floor was soft beneath my boots, a strange mixture of roots, moss, and volcanic rock. It felt ancient. Alive, almost. The deeper I went, the quieter it became. No birds, no insects, just the sound of my own breathing and the soft crunch of my footsteps. Every so often, I thought I heard something, a faint rustle, a distant crack, but when I stopped to listen, the forest fell deathly silent again. After an hour or so, I realized just how easy it was to lose your way here. The trails, if you could even call them that, twisted and turned in ways that made no sense. Markers tied to trees by previous travelers, a piece of ribbon here, a strip of cloth there, were few and far between. My GPS was useless. I pulled out the map I'd brought, but the dense growth made it hard to figure out where I was. Every tree looked the same, every path like a loop back to the beginning. I started to feel uneasy, like I was being watched. It was subtle at first, just a nagging sensation in the back of my mind, but the farther I went, the stronger it got. I turned around more than once, expecting to see someone, or something, just out of sight, but there was never anyone there. That was when I found the first sign of him. A small notebook, worn and weathered by the elements, half buried under some leaves. I recognized it instantly, Taro's handwriting, scrawled across the cover. My hand shook as I opened it, flipping through the pages. His last entries were scattered thoughts, ramblings about the forest, about something calling to him. There was a sketch, a crude drawing of a figure, tall and shadowy, standing among the trees. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at it. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The drawing looked disturbingly familiar, like something I'd seen before, but I couldn't place where. The sun was beginning to set, and the forest, already dark, seemed to swallow what little light remained. I knew I should turn back, but something compelled me to keep going. The notebook wasn't enough. I needed to know what happened to him. I needed to find him. I pushed deeper into the forest, my heart pounding in my chest. The silence was oppressive now, like the entire forest was holding its breath. Every step felt wrong, like I was trespassing on something ancient, something that didn't want me there. And then I saw it. At first, it was just a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye. I froze, straining to listen, but the silence was suffocating. Slowly, I turned my head, my eyes scanning the trees. And there, just beyond the reach of the fading light, I saw it. A figure. Tall, thin, and impossibly still. Its form was barely distinguishable from the trees around it, almost as if it was part of the forest itself. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment I thought it was just a trick of the light. But then it moved. It didn't walk, not exactly. It glided, its body unnaturally smooth as it weaved between the trees. I couldn't make out its face, but I felt its gaze on me, cold, piercing. My legs felt like lead, rooted to the spot as it came closer. I didn't know how long I stood there, staring at it, my mind racing. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was Mother Hiker, or some animal I hadn't seen before. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't human. This wasn't natural. Without thinking, I bolted. I ran faster than I ever had in my life, the underbrush tearing at my clothes, my lungs burning with each breath. The trees blurred around me, and the forest seemed to stretch on forever, no matter how far I ran. Branches slapped against my face, my feet tripped over roots, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. The sense of being chased, of being hunted, overwhelmed me. I could feel it behind me, gaining, its presence suffocating, like a shadow that grew longer with each passing second. Somehow I broke through the edge of the forest, stumbling out into the open. I collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air, the world spinning around me. I glanced back, expecting to see the figure emerging from the trees, but there was nothing. The forest was still, quiet, like it had swallowed whatever had been chasing me. I don't know how long I lay there, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Eventually, I gathered the strength to stand, my legs shaking beneath me. I made my way back to the parking lot, my mind numb. Taro was gone. There was no doubt in my mind that he had found whatever he was looking for in that forest. But what I had seen, what I had felt, was something I couldn't explain. Something I didn't want to explain. I haven't told anyone about that day. Not in detail. When people ask, I just say that I didn't find anything. I let them believe that Taro simply disappeared, like so many others who entered the Aokigahara forest. But sometimes, late at night, I dream about that figure. I see it standing at the edge of the trees, watching, waiting. And I know, deep down, that the forest never lets anyone leave, not completely.